All right, I'm just out here south of Clearwater. This road is called Jameson, I think is what it was listed at on the street sign. But all this really is a dirt, and I do mean dirt, road. And obviously we're looking at the cotton. It's a cotton field out here, and it's just beautiful. Let me see. I'm going to park real quick, and I'm going to leave the bike running. And just look at some of this cotton here. Isn't that beautiful? Got this cotton field out here. And I'm just doing a little enduro on the E model, checking it out, enjoying myself. I would be building the engine for this, but it's just, you know, this time of year in Kansas, we don't have these nice days typically. Now they're talking about it being well, they call that the La Nina, a certain strength of La Nina this year, so there could be some more warmer days. But our daylight is during each day is going to be dwindling. But this is just a nice respite. The weather's supposed to turn tomorrow. And I wanted to share real quick because I just thought this cotton field was great. They don't grow a whole lot of that out here, but with the different strains of cotton that they've come up with, they're a little bit more resistant to some of the typical chemicals that a lot of farmers have grown accustomed to using. So this is probably one of those varieties, probably the 24D ready, if you will, or just resistant strain of cotton out here, because 24D drifts weird. It's weird. It's not physical drift. It's drift that happens once the material that people have sprayed gets contact with the sun. So it dries onto what it is they're trying to control, and then it'll volatilize, sublimation. It'll sublimate, and we'll end up having drift, and it just tears up a lot of different broadleafed crops like that. You know, it's a growth regulator. So it'll basically cause most things to grow themselves to death, or cause their growth to be very odd. They don't produce the crop right, or the plant cannot properly produce or get enough energy to produce the crop. So this is one of those things that I deal with the grapes as well, because they are susceptible, and they don't make any 24D ready grapes as of yet. But yeah, I just wanted to share this road, and this is a dirt road. I've got to really pay attention because there's a lot of advancing gully heads that go through some of these roads like this, because they're not really maintained very much, if at all, except for when a farmer can't get to his field. And there might be some people that live or out this way, and they might take this direction sometimes. But basically what I'm planning on doing is going another mile and then turning around and coming back. But I might not make it that far. This looks like a creek crossing out here. So I'm going to pay attention here. We'll just kind of ride along and see if I screw up. I'm not much of an off-roader, and the light is not helping my view, because I'm getting the flashes through these trees. Oh yeah, this isn't that bad at all. Nice and easy. I'm kind of in a rut here. Yeah, it's a little soupier than I like. I'm not out here gassing it or trying to tear up this road either. Okay. So I don't really care for that too much. Wow, this thing's such a tractor. Yeah, I don't really like that. Alright, I think I'm going to see if I can go a mile south. I don't want to go back through there. Mayfield. I'm going to kind of try to gently sling off all this crap that I got on the bike. I don't have my off-road helmet on here. I've got my showy Hornet on. So I could just kind of cruise a little bit. I just wanted to share this little part of the ride because it's nice and relaxing. I might release the vlog that I did the other day with this one if I had released this one at all. But I might not release that other one. I got a little hacked off at somebody. I was at the casino, four-way, and the person clearly stopped well before me, a few seconds before me, and I kind of raged on them and kind of pointed and gestured and yelled at them. Yeah, rural water districts. You see, this is out on a ridge, so they pump it up to that point and it flows out. You have water pressure. And then I did a crappier wheelie afterwards, and I kind of talked about in that one about and I can do that now. I talked about what the plans are and what my progress is for the engine that goes into this, that will go back into this bike. As I have said before, this engine, the engine that is in this one, is my Supermoto engine, my 16 SM engine. It does a great job. It just chugs along. And really, it's all I need. But I wanted to bring this thing back to life. I wanted to bring that engine back to life. So that's what I'm doing. But as you know, I got to do it better this time, but actually I will be building it back better, unlike you know who. "45, we need you back." Oh, there, mister. Always got to try to wave and be polite to people. They don't like people out here. But the engine the cases were already split on it, and even some bearings were pulled. I've gone and pulled the rest of the bearings out of it. And one of the things I'm doing right now, I've cleaned the cases because they did something that that you really should do, is clean your bike and your engine off before you go and try to just take the engine out, because that gives you room for material getting into your engine when you don't want it to. And when you split the cases, it's just more junk that can get in your way. But they didn't, so I made my own little ultrasonic cleaner, which is kind of nice. I enjoy it. I wonder if I can go, it's 100th. I wonder if I can go west on this one. It looks like I can. A big old tractor. But I cleaned off the cases and removed some bearings, and I've got it for the most part stripped all the way down. And some of the things I'm doing right now is doing the preliminary strip. Well, let me back up. What am I going to do with this engine? I'm going to do a big bore stroker, and I'm adding the advanced clutch technology, ACT for short, wide ratio gear set. And since I'm doing that, I am having to make clearance for the larger gears on the transmission main shaft. That's a shaft that your clutch sits on. There's larger gears on it from 2nd through 5th, and 5th gear is the one that causes the most interference. And there's a place on the rod that your shift forks ride on, where it slides, where it sits, where it wants to interfere with the cases. And quite frankly, it'll, if you do get it to go on there, it'll make clearance, but it'll make clearance the way that you don't want steel versus aluminum to make clearance. Aluminum for my European and otherwise viewers. So I just kind of ground out some clearance for it, and that's a preliminary grinding on the cases. I don't have the new bearings in place yet, because, well, that's the first thing you want to do is put shavings down in your brand new bearings. And that main shaft bearing was removed already, so I couldn't use the shaft to in that bearing seat, or that bearing place, to check my clearance. So I'm going to make an exclusion barrier to keep the shavings if I have to do any final shavings on the cases, or clearancing on the cases. So there's that. That's what I've been working on, and there's some good schematic and just some common sense where the most direct interference would be on those cases would be the point where that high point on that rod and the larger gear that is closest to it would set. So, and it goes down so far. So I've been creating that clearance, and there's two different places. There's 2 shift forks that I've got to do clearancing on, and that means, clearancing meaning removing of some material so that it can accommodate the larger gears, accommodating that extra space. So once I do that, once I get the next step for me to do is to get that transmission bearing located and that main shaft bearing located. I'm going to be quiet here to show respect for those at rest here, and then I'll continue afterwards. Okay, it's good to be respectful, even if nobody matters or nobody cares or not. But that's just my way of doing things. Anyway, back to the case. I'm gonna haha, pun. We got locate that bearing and then check the clearances clearancing that I made. There's going to be some back and forth with that. This is a new process for me. And once I get the clearances, after I install the bearings, and then we can move on to actually putting this engine back together. And I've already got all the materials I need to rebuild the engine, but I did not tear this engine down. So you know, who the people that did do it was between this young man that extracted the engine, and he had a shop do it, and it looks like everything's been taken out fairly orderly. It's not that way in which I would have done it, because I like making templates out of cardboard and showing this bolt goes here, this bolt goes here, this bolt goes here, and so forth. But I think I can get everything back in its proper place. It's just going to take me a little longer to make sure everything's happy. I'll mock it up and we'll get there eventually. So this is a new process for me. The other thing that I found out here recently was oh, that smells. I can smell that, and that's a new thing that's been developing. My smell's been kind of coming back. I could smell this high sulfur, the sulfur smell coming off of those oil wells. And it was coming from the south here, maybe those tanks possibly. I could smell that. It stinks. It stinks like money. But the main shaft, disassembling it, that's something that was kind of a learning curve for me, because I take a more straightforward approach to most things, and a straightforward approach is not how you disassemble the main shaft on these DRZ or Dr. Z, as some people like to call them, shafts. There's a circlip that holds second gear on it, the part that seats against the stator side of the bearing and the clutch. It's a blind bearing, and I was trying my darndest to extract that gear off of there to start the process, so I can lay things out and get this transmission mocked up to make sure everything is going to work. But that's not how it works. It's not one of those circlips that has, this is really loose, that doesn't have any loop ends on it for you to get a hold of it. Loop ends. I'm going to take a left here. Yeah, because this is 100th. I need to go north. Turns out the gear to the closest, going towards the clutch from there, is the one that needed to come off. It had a traditional loop-eyed circlip, or snap ring, as so many people call them, which is fine. And so you can slide both second gear, and I do believe, good grief, I don't think it was fourth, but it might have been third. It was either fourth or third that sets along with it, and it allows both of the gears to slide back away from that circlip, and it'll come right off. So big thanks to my buddy Chuck there in Mulvane. He's got a mechanic shop there, and he's a real sharp, good diesel mechanic, good mechanic all the way around. Anyway, he took a look at it and he said, "Oh, that's how it's meant to come apart." And I said, "Well, that makes more sense than that, because there really wasn't any room for that clip to come off the way it was." And that was mainly to ensure that it doesn't come off and start eating things. But anyway, that was a nice discovery, and a little tutorial on main shaft versus counter shaft relationship is, I'm going to give an analogy here and take it for what it's worth. The relationship between the transmission main shaft and the transmission counter shaft on these motorcycle engines is much like that of your, I wonder if I can get through. I'm going to try to go through here. Your front sprocket and your rear sprocket on your motorcycle on your final drive. Now hear me out on this. On a motorcycle, on your final drive, on your sprocket on the outside of your engine here, if you go a larger or more teeth on your front sprocket, your acceleration is going to be less in the gear in which you're in, but you are going to have more miles per hour ultimately. Some steel out there. And much like if you go down on your front sprocket, you're going to have more acceleration. You're going to go through your gears much quicker. It puts them closer together. And on the rear, if you go less teeth on your sprocket than stock, then again you're going to be longer winded on your gears. So you'll have more miles per hour. And you're going to have less miles per hour or more acceleration if you go a larger sprocket on the rear. But you're going to have less miles per hour. I'm going to stand up because my butt is getting a little sore. This clearly isn't the seat concept seat that I'm accustomed to riding with my 470 stroker. So, back to that. The same relationship is relatable on the main shaft of the transmission component that your clutch sets on, your transmission main shaft on this WR, this wide range transmission gear set. All of the gears, second through fifth, have more teeth. In some cases it might be one or two, and some others it might be 3 or 4. And on the counter shaft, you go down teeth, second through fifth. And it's like 1 or 2, like I say, in most of them. And it decreases the mechanical advantage that you gain. So a little less torque, but gives you more miles per hour. So it's going to be an experiment. I might have to tweak my final gearing if it's too much of an advantage. But to have a stock gear, as in final drive DRZ, do over 100 miles an hour, that's pretty cool. Wow, I went way west. So I'm not building that at this point. I'm not building it so much yet because it's still nice outside, and this is intended to be kind of my winter build. Oh wow, look at that hawk. I don't know if you can see it. It's flying away from me right now. Wow, that thing's huge. Wow. Just cruising along. Never riding alone out in the country. Wow, there's another hawk over to my right. Wow. Probably doesn't show up because it's so far away, but that's just cool. All right, Old Glory. I like that. Anyway, I just wanted to chat about that. That's on my mind right now. And it's going to be a little slower build than something that I took apart myself, because basically I've got to find the components, all the bolts, and mock them up a little at a time. And I'll be doing that on this channel. I'm going to make a compilation of it, and much like on my first build. And I think what I'm going to do is, rather than release this all on my Instagram and Facebook a little at a time and do a edit of it, I think I will just film it on my own and save all my portions of this. And it's going to be done with my phone. I'm not a professional guy, but I'm just hoping I can share that with people that might be interested in what it is that I do. Always got to wave at the farmers. I'm a farmer, sort of. So I look forward to that and sharing that with, on my channel, and leave that behind. And let's see, some of the other high points that I wanted to talk about with this was, I think I pretty much covered it. I've got all my components. I'm ready to mock it up and put it together, but the weather's too nice for me not to ride, and I'm in no big hurry of it. Again, I've got some Supermoto wheels for this bike from a guy parting his bike out. They're going to go on this bike, and I might test the legs of it on the big track next year. That might be exciting, with those wide ratio gears. We'll see, because you always run out of miles per hour. You always run out of them on the big tracks. Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with this area now. This road pretty much goes straight through. What a beautiful, beautiful countryside out here. I know it's all farmland, but there are people that are really good stewards of their property. This little creek over here. It'd be nice to have a little trail that follows that creek to ride on. And I'm also looking to make this bike street legal. I'm going to get the Tusk Enduro lighting kit for this. That's something I'm looking forward to. I probably will be replacing these hand guards. If I can get away with it, I will put the hand guards, the plastic pieces, hopefully they are a clip-on style or something like that, because that's where my front turn signals will be. And of course I have a headlight on here. Some people might be a little grumpy about it. I might even convert it to a high beam, low beam. Well, that one might be a little tougher. It might not be very tough, but I'll have to come up with a switch for that. But what they don't know won't hurt them. Gotta watch. There's no cross arms for this crossing. I was hoping I could see some deer on this trip. That would be cool. Okay, I think I'm coming up on, yes, West Street. Yeah, West Street, yep. This is where I normally ride. I've been branching out more towards going over towards Clearwater, that direction, and a little north, and then off to Conway Springs. Now, I know this vlog's getting a little long, and it might cut off because the battery situation. I didn't bring my backup battery to plug into this and charge it, but I'm just trying to enjoy myself and have a conversation with those that might view my channel, might not. Boat Arc or Osage Orange from the what we call hedge tree, hedge apple. We've had some wind events lately, and it's caused them to fall out of the tree, and really nasty things. That's a nice setup. Shop house. Yeah, I've gone about 40 miles or so, a little over 40 miles on this ride today. Nice little cruise. Some people littering over there. Beer cans, beer bottles. Over there is the Ponderosa on the other side. Oh, and it's over here a little ways. It's on the other side of the river. It looks like there's some trails over there. I wish I knew some of the trails that I could go over here and get some can't talk. Permission to ride on and just kind of do some light trail riding a short distance away from where I live. Yeah, there's the river, the Nanaska River. Nanaska. And this area over here is private property, otherwise, and I talked to the gentleman that had this. That's all sand from the river, and they can't put that sand back in the river. They scraped it out of their farm fields so they could reclaim their farming land. But they don't want people going out there and getting hurt on it, and I don't blame them. You know, there's liabilities to people being on their property if you allow them to go and do crazy stuff without signing a waiver or this or that. But he wasn't too happy about people riding the different UTVs, ATVs, trucks, cars, etc. on the property in which he farms. He's not the owner, but he's more the operator. And they spend a lot of money. They spend a lot of money in diesel removing that material. Okay. So we're going back over the river. Over here. And I can smell that diesel that vehicle was burning. The vehicle of the people that didn't wave at me back. Yeah, but this vlog's getting a little long, and I just wanted to share a small part of the country cruise that I went on today, and hope you found that interesting and educational, and we'll see you next time. Bye.